Every 11 seconds, there's a new ransomware attack. Oil pipelines, universities, corporations, all paying millions of dollars. Barracuda says, don't pay the ransom. Before a ransomware attack occurs, train your teams to recognize an attack and use anti-phishing technology. Protect your applications, and they can't get onto your network. Simple backup and restore solutions quickly recover your data without paying the ransom. Build your ransomware protection plan now by visiting securityweekly.com/Barracuda. That's securityweekly.com/Barracuda. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. Hey, look, if you want to give us a guest suggestion, you can, of course, go to securityweekly.com/guests and submit that. You can also find us on Discord, so you can go to securityweekly.com/subscribe. There's a Discord server invite in there. You can join a Discord server, and there's also a channel on our Discord server for guest suggestions for those that don't really want to feel like filling out the form. If you think of something, you're like, oh, you should have this person on, you can just go to Discord and put that in there. Mr. Joff Thayer is here with us this evening. Joff, welcome.
I thought of something on the Discord. You should have me on.
We should have an Ask,
anyway.
You know, I think it's Darknet Diaries has like an Ask Jack channel.
Yeah.
We should have like Ask individual hosts. You can have like your own channel on our Discord where anyone can ask you anything. It's kind of like
That's
an
right.
ongoing, never-ending AMA.
No guaranteed service contract on turnaround for the answer, though.
Correct.
Because,
correct. That's one reason why I haven't added that yet is what's the SLA.
Yeah, that's right. The SLA is going to be whenever I could give a fuck, which maybe never.
And
now,
you get the opportunity to do it on an individual basis. When I give a fuck about your question, maybe never.
I think I just generated traffic for Discord in that one statement alone. Anyway, yeah, it's good to be here. Can we do shameless promotions already?
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Are you what are you teaching now?
Or shameful promotions. I mean,
or shameful promotions. You know what? I've got another. Look, my favorite class ever is the Regular Expressions Your New Lifestyle. It has turned into like a fanatical cult following favorite. I mean, it's amazing. This is so much fun. So February 16th, 4 hours. Come enjoy the show. And I have one other thing to say, and that is Wild West Hackin' Fest, assuming the world is able to unfuck itself. Oh shit, I said fuck.
Good luck with that.
Is probably going to happen in San Diego that first week of May. It's May 2nd through about the 7th there. So if anybody's interested in Wild West Hackin' Fest, way west, we're going to do it. We're coming to San Diego. It's going to be a hella of a good time. You should be there.
San Diego's nice because it's outdoors.
Yeah.
Like it's always 75 degrees and sunny in San Diego.
So you can
do a lot of things outdoors.
Philadelphia.
You know, I am.
No, right?
Yeah. First of all, a natural optimist. So I am hoping that we have just a hell of a good throwdown party and that the world has totally you-know-what itself and things are just going to be raucously fun. That's what I'm hoping for.
Your class is on February 16th?
Yes, that's the next Regular Expressions class. And it's more than likely that I'm going to teach Regular Expressions again, a special extended edition at Wild West Hackin' Fest in San Diego. I'm going to do a 6-hour, a full 1 day of Regular Expressions just for fun.
Well, okay. Now I'm not doing the February 16th one.
Well, let's be clear. At the Wild West Hacking Fest class, I would put a challenge out there that perhaps the students of this class could give Joff a shot of whiskey or a beverage of his choice for every properly done regular expression.
That's a lot of drinking.
Yes. I will definitely take single malt. I'm a big fan of single malts.
I wonder how many regular expressions it takes to get to the center of a Joff pop.
Ooh, wow. Challenge thrown. Look at that.
1, 2,
yes. Pop.
3.
Right.
Hey, how do you guys feel?
Wait. I just got to say, it's so good to see Larry. I haven't seen Larry in a while. So, Larry, love you, man.
Virtual hugs. Virtual hugs.
Love you too, Jeff.
Hey, Paul, can I do one quick
Yes.
one quick announcement? So I've got mine, and you know what it is. I told you in the pre-show, but I have to do it. Hi.
Josh
we're
is
pregnant.
Josh is pregnant. Oh, that's your wife.
Well, my wife's pregnant.
And,
so
you
Janice is pregnant.
You said you have to do it. It looks like you already did, my friend.
Yes. At least once.
But hey, practice makes perfect. No, twice. I have another kid.
Yeah, that's right.
So
once at
thank
least
you.
recently, fairly recently, which is,
Science has
in the
worked
last
out
few
what
months.
causes that too.
That's right.
Yep. So Josh, Janice is pregnant. Congratulations. Who's the father?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I haven't figured that out yet.
Man, you opened yourself up to this.
You don't ask too many questions, man. Just
I know.
Go with it.
Look,
Congratulations.
I don't
it's
care.
wonderful.
Life is good.
We're very happy
that's
for you.
awesome.
Everybody's
the
healthy
father's
and
got one of those
that's wonderful.
Jewish space lasers badges,
Hey,
That made Josh laugh. That was good.
how do you guys feel about using Twitter to prioritize your security patching strategy?
It's actually not a bad strategy.
It's not bad strategy. It is a legitimate. But I'm
On the
curious, how do you
surface, it sounds ridiculous, right?
How are you gathering the data?
Yeah,
It does.
but
But
actually,
seriously, how many places do you get InfoSec threat intelligence from? And the answer is, well, I have all these threat feeds that I pay tens of thousands of dollars for, and Twitter's about twice as accurate and zero cost. All it takes is a little time.
Very fast.
mostly because someone will disclose the exploit and or how it's being weaponized on Twitter. And essentially, if you know how to mine that, you can mine it as a threat feed, essentially.
Yeah, you hire an intern. Isn't that how you do it?
You have to be very careful, and you have to curate your Twitter list pretty heavily.
Yeah, you got to know who to
Mine is
follow.
narrowed down very, very tightly, but I could see how that could be a bad thing too.
Yeah, I will have to. We'll have to talk after the show, Tyler, because I realized that my feed reader can aggregate Twitter feeds much better than it used to. So
you should probably do a webcast on how to curate a Twitter feed for that.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, I can't read Twitter for more than 2 minutes, and then I've got 5 days worth of reading and tabs queued up in Chrome, and my laptop's crashing because Chrome is crashing.
Yeah.
Not to mention all the rage.
That too.
That's another axis of curation. You curate to cut out the annoying people,
So do you just search Twitter for hashtag exploit, and if it's there, that's what you're patching? You can't go by you can't go by hashtag. You got to go by account, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty careful about which accounts, and even then, I have a few that do some really high quality things, and I'll turn off alerting and then scroll through some stuff on a different channel or a different persona. But yeah, mine is pretty clean. It's very accurate on what's going on and the situational awareness of the Twitterverses.
Yeah, Kenna founder Ed Bellis, who we've had on the show in the past, he's a great guy. He mentions Twitter surprisingly has a much better signal to noise ratio than CVSS. It says about 2 times better, and they've studied this, which I think is interesting.
That's actually pretty funny, but sad.
CVS has there's a lot of factors in CVSS, and when you look at Twitter, if you're like, well, if people are talking about it and is indicative that there is an exploit and it's actively being used, that probably is what you want to pay attention. Do you have to pay attention to those? I mean, you should pay attention to those. Above and beyond CVSS and all these different ways to weight and rank and compensating controls and all the other factors that we've talked about. Basically, if that's what people are using, fix that first. Is it as simple as that? Maybe it is.
TLDR. It's like CVSS and TLDR.
Yeah.
What is the problem?
Yeah,
what's everyone taking up?
I think Tyler, you kind of nailed it, right? I mean, Twitter to me is kind of like putting your finger out and just seeing which way the wind is blowing, right? It's that sort of trendometer, right? And if you've got the right set of network contacts, which most of us have, you can see from an offensive or defensive perspective, and of course they're both related, exactly what's going on.
But that's deeper than Joe Rogan once described social media, and I'll never forget the quote, because he was like, Facebook is where old people share their political views. Instagram is where people share pictures. And he said Twitter is a bunch of monkeys flinging poo.
Accurate.
That's not far off.
Wait, what's TikTok?
That's not far off. That is not far off.
So what's TikTok?
What's TikTok?
People
sharing, people posting videos.
Yes.
Thirst traps.
Of course, well, Instagram has reels, and so does
crappy
Facebook.
porn. TikTok is crappy porn.
Otherwise known as thirst traps.
Russian and China disinformation videos.
But you have to acknowledge that the way we curate Twitter in terms
right?
of
We're filtering out
followers.
the poo, basically.
Right.
Yes.
We're
InfoSec
filtering
Twitter
the
is
poop.
almost its own thing. Honestly, if someone had a platform that was very similar to Twitter and was just InfoSec focused, like InfoSec
I'd be
Twitter,
all over it.
it's very curated as is, and is very specific in a lot of niche areas that overlap well. So
if you were to pitching to investors a drama-free InfoSec Twitter, you might get some funding. You think?
Web 3.0 metaverse.
You got to use all the buzzwords in there. Yeah. Apps.
Shit, I've already drunk a lot
Streaming.
tonight.
Yeah, we'd have to have
Tyler's
InfoSec
making me
Twitter in the
drink,
metaverse.
In the metaverse.
In the metaverse, backed by blockchain, and we'll NFT everybody's wallet so that their signature and verified.
Every
on
tweet is an NFT.
Yeah, and don't forget we're going to throw a little
Oh.
AI and ML in there too.
AI ML curated NFT Twitter threat intelligence feed
In the metaverse.
Blockchain verified.
in the metaverse with an augmented reality game. And stored on a blockchain besides the NFT. Oh no, there's a coin with an initial coin offering.
Initial coin. You need a coin. I mean, Signal has a coin. Everyone's got a coin. You need your own coin.
The SW coin. The SW coin.
I want to see the pitch deck on that next week.
All right.
Fucking nailed it. I hope
Give
we
me 5
captured
seconds. I'll have a copy paste on the white paper. I mean, an original
go.
white paper.
Oh,
All right.
God, you just reminded me of something I need to do.
Next story. Google Docs comments are being used to launch phishing attacks. Is this anything new? Or is this?
No,
it's not
this
new.
isn't Well,
It's just interesting. Have you guys used this on pen tests and such?
100%.
So do you have to have a document within that Google? I'm assuming you could probably do this with Office 365 or no?
Office 365 would be a little bit different because you'd have to allow external resources and or organizations, as well as be able to tag that. So that organization would have to be added into external trusted
So that's
resource.
a big difference I find between G Suite and Office 365. Office 365 is very much a walled garden. And you have to go out of your way to unwall that garden. With G Suite, it's a lot more loosey-goosey and open. In other words, I can just go into any Google Doc on anyone's Google Drive, and I can mention someone by email address, and it'll send them a message with a link to that document.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, and or a link to a resource external to that document. You can do both. It takes a little bit more effort to do the second one.
So you can swap the link out, or is it a configuration setting?
Yes.
Both.
Interesting.
So there has been, if I recall correctly, some interesting work into remote interrelated macro behavior, if I recall correctly, between Office 365 hosted documents. So there's some possibilities there, but they're within the walled garden.
Within the walled garden, right.
Yeah. A different thread approach, different initial start. And yeah, the way Office 365 apps render the documents, it's not the traditional OLE with an exe calling that. It's a little bit different how those API calls end. We'll call them WebSocket docs interact, because you can do live editing and stuff. So this is all WebSocket based, and the application and the way it loads the doc format is not docx. So it's there's some interesting things. There's a little bit of research there to be done, but there are people looking at this very heavily right now.
It is interesting though, because this notification gets to the end user in what is seemingly a more trusted format, because it's not coming from the attacker, right? It's coming from the platform, and I'm more likely to trust that, both in my technical controls, but also in my user. I'm more likely to trust that because I didn't get an email from but is obviously like a spoofed, account and email and name and all that stuff, I'm getting an email from Google.
Yeah, it's a trusted source, and or you have the ability to manipulate the name. The name can be whatever you want. So you're leveraging someone's open source, OSINT, and figuring out colleagues via LinkedIn, making the colleague's name with inside that. How you do the pretext. There's multiple ways, but even something as simple as I'm not on my computer right now. Here's the edits from my personal account, and you can set up an entire Gmail account that even looks very real with a good pretext on top of having the name and or having it come from trusted sources. So there's multiple ways to...
My security awareness training program didn't prepare me for this, Tyler. It just told me to look at the name and the email, and it came from Google, so why shouldn't I trust it? This is what's wrong with security awareness training.
So this is like the unpopular view of 2022, we'll call it. Like, is security awareness training dead? Probably not. Like, we still need to train users. There's still things that they can help with, and they may catch the occasional thing that gets through. But if it's sophisticated enough to get by most of your EDR, most of your spam protection, your end user is not equipped to deal with that. In fact, I would argue that even most of us InfoSec people without a lot of evaluation or tools are not equipped to find that, see it. Hovering over a link does not fix security now. Like the ability.
I'm gonna push back a little bit,
because I think the issue is if I got a notification about a document and Tyler's name was in there, I would message Tyler on Slack and be like, "Hey, dude, did you just share a document with me? Because I'm not clicking on that yet unless I check with you first." And I think that's the kind of training. It's not really security awareness training, right? It's process and procedures training that you need to have for your employees.
That's 100% correct, and that is the difference. Process and procedures and the methods that people do validation or verification for sensitive things is the training that needs to happen. It doesn't need to be – there should be technology backing users' actions. The behaviors users do, there should be technology supporting things that protect them. Now, behaviors and processes, when you go to transfer funds or do an ACH or you get something that has a security alert, you need to do a verification check via your process and security. That's good training right there. That fixes, we'll call it 80% of things. The rest of it, technology should be handling.
Yep, Josh.
So that's that's what I was going to say. I did security awareness training for an old client that I've been doing for years, and I changed it a lot over the last few years. It's not, I still do the hey, look, hover over a link, do some basic stuff, but I do more of look. Let me tell you what's going on in the world. Let me tell you how you in your organization can help by doing these things. If you're not sure, go ask. They don't mind, that type of thing.
Right.
It's more about the process and procedure. It's more about the perception and the understanding. Use your critical faculties. It's not don't click anything. If anything is clickable, don't touch it anymore. We don't do that anymore. It's more along the lines of
too, right? Like that's the big thing. That security buy-in from user awareness training, getting security's name out there, getting the culture changing, getting people on board with security so that your security team is not fighting against department heads, fighting against users. They understand what the onus is, providing them that personal realization of why this matters, and then getting that culture to shift because the end user is involved in security, becomes a team effort where that mindset shifts for both sides, and you're not fighting the security battle because you guys all are on the same team. That's where security awareness really has value. If you can change that to that positive reinforcement and that positive behavior around security awareness and your security team.
But also, I
do that. Hang on, I actually, in the security awareness training I actually did that by giving them examples of in their personal life where security mattered. I talked to them about scams they're going to experience at home, not necessarily at work. I also talk about how technology changes what we think of the world and how it changes our world. My favorite example is how driverless cars are going to change their property taxes. They're like, what? And I'm like, well, driverless cars don't get speeding tickets. Most towns get a lot of revenue from speeding tickets. Where are they going to make the revenue shortfall up? And the lights just go on behind the eyes. I'm like, so technology is going to change your life. If you understand technology and you're working with technology and you work with your security team, work with your IT team, if you build those relationships, it's going to be helpful. If you don't, you're going to be left behind and you're not going to know where to turn when you actually see something that's bad. So I 100%, Tyler, I'm 100% on this. What you're saying. I just try to make it sort of real to them and normal to them. It's not an alien concept. And it works really, really well. Every company I've done that for over the years has reported incredible engagement from their employees with their security team and their IT team.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And also, I think that we have so many different ways in which we can communicate today. We should use that to our advantage. You know, the example I gave. If I get an email with a link, can I verify that? You know, most of us that work for a company today have an email account. We can text message our employees and likely have some other kind of messaging platform, right? Whether that's Teams or Slack or whatever. We should use that to our advantage to be able to, you know, double check things before you look into some kind of message. Personally, you know, Josh, that gets a little hard. I get a text message out of the blue that I need to go update something for my social security or whatever. Someone could fall for that scam because they can't just text an employee, right? But I think that's when we've always leaned on, well, I'm just going to, if I have an account there, I'm going to go use a different device and I'm going to go to that account and make sure it's valid or what have you, right? So the checks and balances, I think, is the most powerful tool that we have to combat, like Tyler said, maybe 80% of it, because there's now an increasing spotlight being shined on zero-click exploits, which is kind of interesting. Which, I mean, this just doesn't come down to it does come down to patching, except when it doesn't, right? When this is a 0-day, zero-click exploit, it's a lot of zeros in there. But it's a 0-day, zero-click exploit. This could be kind of scary. Just using the application could get you popped. And I think a lot of us were like, yeah, that can't happen. And then we read the report from NS, you know, when someone wrote up I think it was Citizen Lab that wrote up Google Project Zero, published the report. We were all like, oh, okay, that's a thing. A high level of effort, but that's a thing. And now we have one for Zoom, which is where I was segueing into.
Yep, and I think that's the next iteration, right? All these SaaS platforms, we've been talking about this on the show for years now. SaaS and single sign-on are going to be the next big battleground where, you know, the breach is going to happen. You're not going to have anything inside of your environment that gets popped, but your Slack gets popped. And now all those conversations, sensitive docs shared, interesting stats, you know, confidential things, all those things are getting shared. That SaaS application is the next battleground for, you know, just getting credentials, which could just be a no-click exploit from your mobile device that you allow BYOD.
Just target Electron, you'll be fine.
Target what now?
Electron.
Electron.
Yeah. Oh, Electron's good one.
God.
Because, I mean, 1Password's moving to Electron now, right?
Did they just
1Password did move to Electron. They did it already. Yeah.
Did they get bought? I think it took funding or got bought recently too. Thought I saw something on that.
Don't get me started on Electron.
Did anyone read the full write-up to the Google Project Zero? Was it Natalie Slinovich? How do you say her name? Silvanovich? Did I get that right? I apologize, Natalie.
Silvanovich.
Thank you. Like my brain just couldn't process that because I suck at pronouncing things. That's why.
You have a brain?
Yes. Apparently, it has some issues when it comes to pronouncing people's names, among other things. I didn't read this full write-up. I just saw bits and pieces. RTP processing. So I'm like, yep, that's probably really bad. Dragos made a comment on that. Because Dragos spent a bunch of time in the AV world. And he's like, these protocols and encoding and decoding of video messages is really messy process. Prone, ripe for the picking in terms of security vulnerabilities. So it didn't surprise me that was at least part of it. And I apologize. I didn't have time to digest the research article, but you should.
They spent money even buying the licensing to house the servers. I think it's an on-prem server that you have to use, where they were able to get this to work. So that the closed source software and the means which they had to do this is not something you're going to trivially go spend $1,500 on to get the licensing to do this yourself. But any of the AV stuff, it's those closed loop and older systems that rely on high fidelity and very high frequency. There's going to be some interesting things in there.
I love the fact. I was just reading through this article, and I love the fact that Silvanovich noted that there's one of the key things that they could have to really help prevent the 2 0 days.
Yeah, 2 vulnerabilities, one buffer overflow and one info leak.
Yep, was to compile your shit with ASLR.
Imagine that.
Oh, that's funny.
Wow.
That's. I mean, let's face it. Like, ASLR is a really solid technology, but if you don't use it,
Right.
it's like not putting your seatbelt on.
Yeah. Like, she was quoted as saying there is no good reason for it to be disabled in the vast majority of software.
That's absolutely true. But yet today, if you were to jump into IDA Pro or whatever favorite debugger and start, filtering through on a Windows system, DLLs that are actually properly compiled and secure, you got to find them still that are not, right? It's stunning.
These vulnerabilities were fixed on November 24th in 2021.
Yep, and since enabled ASLR.
Oh, have they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yep, they didn't say a date.
It's a wise decision.
Yeah. Like, really?
Fun stuff.
Indeed.
Oh, let's talk about Russia
Let's talk about Ukraine.
and Ukraine. And we don't talk about that.
Let's talk about you and me.
Will the Ukraine exist for much longer?
I'm not.
What?
I mean, I've been
What do you mean,
watching.
Russia arresting REvil ransomware? That's
Yeah,
the big
was that
one?
like?
Sure.
Was that just like smoke and mirrors? Like
Yep.
just throwing a bone? Like, hey,
Yep.
we know you're concerned that we're gonna attack Ukraine and all that stuff, but like, we'll give you REvil. Like, I don't know, is that a big enough bone to throw? Not
Well,
really a big enough bone to throw.
They arrested the people in Russia.
Right.
The group is reported to have agents all over the globe.
Well, they're affiliates, right? It's an affiliate program. Like,
Right.
the gang itself is fairly small, honestly, and these dudes are making $10 million a year. And the house in the pictures that they're showing FSB guys or GRU or whoever, whichever unit took them down this time, it's pretty.
It's not a $10 million house.
Not a $10 million.
Well, but by Russian standards, it was quite nice.
There was a
hold on
bathroom
a
and a
second.
kitchen in a separate room.
Yeah, like I said,
Isn't this just a government talent recruiting operation? I mean, seriously.
Do you think that's what they did with them? They nabbed them, and now they're working for the
we have
GRU.
ways of making you work for us.
Yes.
Well, now they just handed over the control panel and any access they had to deploy whatever they had before it gets shut down.
Or does it get used by the Russians? Like, oh, hey, thanks for all that infrastructure.
You mean
take
like
that.
the ransomware that got deployed that didn't have a decryption key in the decryption process in the phone?
Yeah. Funny how that works.
That's
huh?
hysterical.
Yeah.
I can just see the Russian authorities going, you won't be needing that anymore. I'll take that.
I think this is literally just an acquisition.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So, and you're right, Paul. I think it's smoke and mirrors. It was hey, we did the right thing. Never mind that man behind the Ukraine, right?
Right.
So, yeah, we're not bringing cyber into this at all. Look, we're arresting the cybers.
Do you realize you're doing these are
isn't
not the
it
drones
case?
These are not the droids you're looking for? Hand wave at the same time, Larry.
Yes.
We are. It's just habit. Yeah.
Just checking.
Yes. No, that was the intent.
I
Hard
may
to see
be
by the
wrong
camera. I
here,
could
but
just see like
isn't it?
It's second nature at this point.
Now, is that the wiper malware you were referring to, Tyler? That's going through Ukraine right now? Is that the wiper? The press calls it a wiper.
Wiper ransomware with a ransom note that's actually malware that just wipes your computer because there's no decryption functions.
So they're just encrypting it.
Sneaky.
They don't. Yeah.
And they're wiping the MBR as part of, or they're encrypting the MBR, and it doesn't. That does not allow the system to boot after that. So, there's that problem as well. Like, the recovery process of this is not well thought out.
It's almost like,
Or is it?
have we seen this before? Not Petya.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the standard. Yeah, standard MO.
Yep.
Sometimes I really hope for like really creative things and things that just make me, that's freaking awesome. Like, zero-click exploits that take me 3 days to read. Like, I need these cool things. This other shit that we're seeing that's 50 years old and like old and dead. It's like it's getting old.
But it's old. But Tyler, you say it's old and dead, but it still works.
It still works. That's why it still works. It's just
Said the old person.
Indeed.
Sorry, couldn't resist.
You're all right. It's all
true.
good. It's all good. But I think on the whole Ukraine situation, I think that John Strand really had some great comments. And that was very much what we're starting to see out of recommendations from like CISA and a bunch of other stuff, and Microsoft and others was, aside from the whole political mess, to paraphrase or to maybe add some words to John's mouth, don't worry about the whole political thing with Ukraine. Don't worry about the cybers so much, but take a look at what the TTPs are that they're using and expect to see them elsewhere.
Yeah.
So it's not going to just get used there. It's going to get used in a whole bunch of other places. And
well, there's nothing like having a laboratory, right? I mean, let's face it. I mean, the pen testing industry, we love having laboratories too.
Yeah. So. Yeah. What was that T-shirt I saw back in the day? And I think it was Mubix that was wearing it. It was like from the Metasploit project or something, and on the back it had, hold on a second, let me test that malware in my lab, and it had a picture of a map of China.
Yeah, Nickerson was credited with some of the first references to that as well.
Yep.
The China lab.
That was our old slogan for Dark Side Ops. Was, your prod is our dev.
Yeah. Now the tables will be turned exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
It's so evil. I love it so much. It's so evil.
Is it REvil? Is it REvil or REvil? Wait, what?
REvil or Annaboo.
Is it like Weevil but with an R? REvil?
I mean, at least the Russians could just ask them how they pronounce it.
Yeah.
Like, can we get a final verdict on this? How it's pronounced?
We could ask Linus Torvalds.
Yes. We made that famous recording.
Yes.
Well, I think it was a famous recording of how to pronounce
Hello,
Linux.
my name is Linus Torvalds, and I pronounce Linux.
And no one says it like that.
Except for Linus.
Linux.
Well, I mean, to be correct, it's Sodinokibi.
What now?
Whatever
what?
The Russian one is.
No, it's Linux.
Yeah. The Safari data leakage one is very interesting as well. There's some very useful tracking that happens in Safari right now.
Is that a result of a vulnerability or a feature, or are we just mincing words at this point?
Yeah, that's just it's a way in the browser engine and the way it collects stuff and stores it in the database, if I remember right. But
of course, feature
apparently
it allows
if you're authenticated in a Google account, it allows them to basically fingerprint the Google account, and in some circumstances, depending on how the URL is formed in other tabs, if it's able to pull some of that out, it can get session keys or get other tracking information. There's a lot of information it's able to pull, and this is for Safari on iPad, and I don't know if it was iPhone. Was one of the
Safari 15 running on iOS, iPadOS 15.
Yeah, which is really bad, right? Like, because that's the default browser for a lot of people. It's definitely not the default browser for most security people, but on your iPhone or iPad, like, people are using Safari unless they've went out of their way to install something different. So the ability to track, maybe gain authentication, or even just fingerprint what users tied to which device and what Gmail accounts tied to that user from previous work, that's very interesting and has a lot of ramifications.
Yeah, it's interesting because this isn't the same origin policy. This is exploiting the browser to see what's running in it. Same origin applies to HTTP requests, not the internal workings of the browser.
Yeah, I believe like if you visit a certain site that has certain tracking characteristics, it's able to utilize the IndexedDB for that browser in the way that browser leverages it to gain insights and potentially query that information in a manner that's able to get you things that you're after. So
that's interesting.
Again, another good reason to secure your device and choose your applications carefully.
What do you do to lock down your browser on your phone? I find there's not as many security controls as I would like on the browser on my phone, and let alone the browser that like is embedded in other apps, which despite you turning it off, the app updates, and now when I click on a link in one app, it's still, I got to go back and change the setting. That's highly annoying. And the ads are highly annoying. And so unless you're blocking those at the network level, I haven't found good ways to lock down my phone.
If you're, especially if you're doing this on iOS, right? This is a closed loop, thing. You can have some control over that in Android, but even that is getting to the point where it's getting much harder, and even leveraging some of the browsers such as Brave or Firefox modified browsers, or even some of the Tor privacy browsers. Like, there's not as many settings as you would hope to control on the mobile side of that. So you're really getting to an interesting spot. And by the way, we are going to give a shout out to OX Jelly. I'm assuming that's his username for the raid on Twitch. If you're not following Security Weekly on Twitch, you should go check it out, because we just got a bunch of cool people in there. So.
Oh, thanks for OX Jelly. Nice.
Yeah.
So I also, like, when I'm going through the apps on my phone trying to read a recipe today, or even just like some articles, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't even read the article because there's so many ads. Now, my desktop browser, I've got the ad blocker, which, say what you will about that, and sites that want you to disable it, which is annoying. But put that aside for a moment. On the phone, this is a dangerous kind of thing. So much so I'm thinking I want to do a Pi-hole implementation at home and it work for blocking those things. The problem with that is on the other side, it blocks a lot of legitimate stuff, and now you get into this maintenance usability kind of situation that we've all been
in. And
in.
even if you can do that, that breaks a lot of sites that require cookies or even third-party verification things to load. You try and load one of your banks with some of the blocking put in place, like, you've got a lot of problems that start to appear. Even the good adversaries are also using things like Cloudflare or ad networks, and so your ability to even block the stuff that is curated and vetted even starts to go down more because of the way that adversaries are to really focus on this, especially if you're worried about the mobile side of this. This is getting more difficult, and I think at some point there will be a breaking of we'll call it Web 2 and how Android and Apple, or Google and Apple, decide to render and allow things to access the sandbox even within inside of the browser. I imagine some of this is going to begin to be vetted. Maybe that's Web 3.0 stuff. Maybe that is Web 2.0 and some different proxy technologies. But at some point, they've gotten the platform down and the hardware down. I think they're going to start breaking things from the browser outside.
But then you have the problem of how do you fund the web? I mean, you've got a significant issue there. If advertising is what produces the content. You mean
there's a conflict of interest now with this platform and what their current revenue sources of business are?
I would never accuse Apple and Google of conflicts of interest, mostly because they own my soul in various ways.
Well, but I mean, Apple's done a good job of restricting advertising and locking down your privacy. I mean, not that it's perfect, but it's better than Google, certainly. Then you get in this race of like, all right, do I have to pay for this content out of my own pocket, or do I deal with the ads, and what's the balance, between the two? I mean, from a security perspective, I think the ad thing is dangerous, and I almost want to put the phones on a separate network that does that filtering to protect the device, because I feel like the devices, iPads, any kind of device like that, are not as great at blocking some of this malicious content as you can on a desktop. I feel like I've got better tools.
I think you're right. I really have the same feeling. And, there's another comment I wanted to make on it, and that is, if you look at solutions like Pi-hole and homegrown stuff like I've got, we're depending, for the most part, on controlling the DNS requests. Well, now you have DNS over HTTPS. So, unless you're actively blocking all the DNS over HTTPS providers, which I'm going to put in place shortly, you have an issue there as well, right? And of course that's one of these, because there is like with my own local resolver on my own network, I may well end up forwarding my DNS requests over to Quad9, who are the only DNS over HTTPS provider that I think I can trust right now, just because I want to encrypt it between me
and the provider,
and them
across the provider, so your ISP can't spy on your DNS.
So my ISP can't play games with the DNS traffic. So it's a sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation.
If I'm your ISP and I know you, Joff, I know you're probably going to porn sites, and I really don't care which ones. But
unless they're good, because then he wants to.
Yes.
There is a reason I renamed the iPad, right?
Well, like rename the host name, or
no? I just substitute the I for a P.
It's your PP pad. Oh, God! Where's the bleach for my brain?
It's the porn pad.
It's not the porn pad,
but it's for your eyes.
Putting that aside for a minute. It's getting more difficult because, to some extent, the browsers kind of took control of the entire protocol stack. And then you've got this sort of vertical lock-in with some browser vendors, and Google is a prime example. I hate to pick on them, but
wait. I just want to key on that point, Joff. The browser will not look at what DNS server has been assigned to me or I've assigned in the operating system. The browser will do its own use DNS to resolve names.
Yeah, it'll have a default list of DNS over HTTPS and go straight to that provider, and screw you if you've got a DNS provided by DHCP. They don't care anymore.
Oh, good Lord.
Which was frankly a huge argument that Paul Vixie made a couple of years back, and he was really mad about it for good reasons, but nobody was listening because there's very few people that understand DNS, frankly.
And is that an option in most modern browsers now that I have to turn on, or is that?
It's on by default. The fact that you're going to HTTPS providers is usually on by default. It's an option to turn it off so that you can use traditional DNS.
Interesting.
So that's
but
sad,
now what's
right?
the browsers are also messing with things that I think they shouldn't be messing with. And I saw a recent announcement where Chrome said it won't go to local resources.
Yep.
So, is it all RFC 1918, or is it reading my IP address and then deriving the subnet from that and going, you can't browse to things locally?
Paul, actually, it's just your content. We have a full-time intern convincing your computer to let you access your porn folder.
I see.
This is a big problem. Though we've been tied.
It's a huge problem.
We've been tied to registrars, DNS providers, and ISPs, and browsers. Right, like those are the four big main choke points where we couldn't decentralize now, or have a free and open internet. If we wanted to. So outside of if we want to curate, be very specific about where and what we do, the internet is not really that easy to manipulate at our level now in order to do that. That's why I think there's such a big attachment to this Web 3.0, this decentralized, you own a domain and you're not paying a subscription. You don't have to go to a registrar. You don't have to do the DNS. There are reasons that Tor kind of took off on the darknet and the Onion, where you're decentralizing and publishing some of that. And I think Web 3.0 is kind of the next iteration, making that simple. But we still have a lot of problems to fix with Web 2.0 and the integration and intermediate time between these two technologies. So there's some very interesting things coming up that could, getting rid of passwords and having a wallet or NFT that's signed and using your public key to verify your login that's all attached to a cold wallet storage or something off of blockchain. All these things sound really awesome and they fix a lot of problems, but we are probably 5 years off from mainstream adoption, maybe more. So we've got this kind of intermediate time that we've got problems that are going to keep getting worse with these four choke points that get controlled by some government, ISP, or conglomerate.
Right. And a lot of those choke points were frankly driven by the maturity of the age of surveillance capitalism. They really were, right? And now I think we're realizing the actual impact of that. It's the light slowly coming on. I mean, light was on for me for a long time, but the light's slowly coming on for other people. It's like, oh shit, we just turned this over to browser vendor X. Well, that's a bad thing, right? There was a reason the open internet was an open internet, right? An open, even playing field. We need to get it back. We need to, go back in that direction.
We've been supplementing that privacy, security, and control with subsidized devices that make your life convenient and, easy and comfortable to watch Netflix from your TV from an Amazon subsidized piece of hardware that sells your ad tracking to a bazillion companies that then curate your shopping list for next week. Like, we've kind of all signed up for this. We're just at a state where it's really hard to gain some of that control back without losing a good portion of the comfortable ease of use and internet that we are now used to or rely on.
Oh, man, I'm so depressed now. We need to do a segue.
Can we segue to the deepfakes article?
Yeah. I didn't actually. I'll be honest. I didn't read this one. The headline. Okay. You could take the headline and we could basically debate the headline and whether or not you agree that. Well, there's a couple things we'd have to agree on if we really are grokking this headline. So, preparing for the next cybersecurity epidemic, deepfakes. So that means we got to agree that deepfakes is or could be an epidemic. We have to also agree that it would be a cybersecurity epidemic, and we also have to agree that something that we should prepare for. I don't know if all those things are true.
No, and yes.
No, and yeah. Was that the
okay? First off, I think it's going to be a problem, but I mean, I don't want to milk the story too badly, too hard.
I mean, it has the potential to be an utter mess. All right.
An absolute utter mess. Well done, sir. And it's not total bull. Okay?
I thought this when a cow jumps over a barbed wire fence. What do you call that?
Oh my gosh!
An utter mess, Josh.
An utter mess. Yeah. Okay. God. Oh.
Wow.
Oh, damn.
Oh. Yeah, I mean,
anyway,
this is just exponentially building on what we already have a problem with, right? Like disinformation, misinformation. Like the general public has no idea what's real and what's fake. That's nothing new. That's how political games are played. That's how elections are being won. So, we're far behind the curve if we're going to say this is like the next big cyber thing.
Try and get your family and friends to realize that all the political memes out there, all right, probably 90 plus, or political ones 100%, but all the memes out there that aren't just meant to be funny are disinformation. Mm-hmm. Like it's just absolutely not true.
Yeah, chew on that for a while.
But there's a difference between disinformation and like a deep fake, which is an absolute fake of an actual event. So let's talk about that for just a second. And let's ignore disinformation just for a second.
It is a message. It's something that's not true.
It is a method of disinformation, but this method of disinformation is what we're talking about.
Agreed.
So this method of disinformation has two forms that I know of, and that's audio and video. And on the audio part, you can still find a YouTube for Adobe Voco, VOCO. And this is actually a tool that they were going to release. And it was almost 10 years ago now, I think. Don't quote me on that. If somebody can do a quick Google, that'd be great. And the second one is the video, which there's another YouTube for face to face, numeral 2. And that's over 10 years old. And it was the ability to put a face on a live video stream that you could make it do what you wanted. You combine the two. By the way, Adobe never released Voco because they realized how terrifying it could be as they were doing the demonstration. And you can almost see the people, like they used Key and Peele. They used Key, I think it was, to do the demonstration. You could see his face go, holy crap. It was frightening. And but what we have is a situation where you can't trust. Like 10 years ago, I had a case where I had a high net worth client, and they're like, their banker got asked, email from with forwarders and responders, autoresponders and stuff. And the banker got asked, hey, here's an email. Can you send wire transfer a few $100,000 to this account, which is an account the banker had never seen before. And he emailed back, are you sure? And they forwarded the message to themselves. If it comes from this person, forward it to here. And sent back through that email account. Absolutely. It's a purchase. It's no big deal. And he called, and that was the difference. Mm-hmm. He picked up a phone and called. He's like, I just wanted to double check. And they're like, no, that's not us. Don't do it. He's like, cool, just checking. And they're like, all right, they asked me, what technological means should we do to stop that? I'm like, just call him every time for every wire transfer. It takes 10 seconds. It's not a big deal. Just coordinate when he goes on vacation because, you don't want to run out of household money. And now you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, deepfakes are going to be an issue, both audio and video, but those are, we know that CGI is freaking fantastic. We know AI is now really good with deepfakes. So it's just that, what are they trying to accomplish? Like, politically, like, this is disinformation, misinformation fighting. It has gotten to the point where you shouldn't trust videos. You shouldn't trust what you see. There's always going to be a lens and an angle from whatever news media outlet you're getting it from. Whatever
Ignore national security, Tyler. Ignore national security. Just for a second. Just talk about small to medium business. If you've got, a 50-person company doing $10 million a year, $20 million a year, I'm just making this up, bear with me. And they get a call from the boss, and it's the CFO, and this is the CEO. I want you to transfer every dollar in the daily money account or whatever to this address right now. We have an emergency, blah 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 blah. And the CFO, okay, and goes ahead and does it.
Zoom AI filter with the boss on Zoom, and has an AI deepfake filter that you can tell it whatever to say. Like, these are going to be problems, which is why, like, I was never a real huge proponent. Like, I've done crypto for a long time, and I was, I backed a lot of the ideas. I didn't think they would take off quite to the point that they're at. But this is where the validation process, the key signing and the blockchain, and really having a way to validate things now with all these up-and-coming coins companies, ways in which to validate and verify contracts and actions that is signed. Like, crypto and blockchain, if you're not on board, like, there's no way around it, because we're going to be living in a digital environment that you can't trust anything unless it is cryptologically sound.
Yeah,
I mean, this was
verified. I was about to make that comment that, in order to, let's say you're watching a video, well, there needs to be some out-of-band method, whether that's blockchain, whatever it might be.
I was just going to say, but it sounds like an NFT.
Yeah, insert your crack term of the moment. But there needs to be an out-of-band way to verify, like an HMAC, right, that is legitimate content.
No, it was developed in 2019. It was the Voight-Kampff test. It's how they tested for replicants. Blade Runner? Anyone?
Yeah, Blade Runner.
I thought it was serious. He was like, "What are you talking about?"
Like, what?
I was waiting for the other shooter drop. I'm like, what the fuck is Bolton?
Blade Runner, the movie, took place in 2019, and that was they needed a test to see if it was a replicant or not. I mean, essentially, that's the same thing we need for deepfakes is some kind of test.
But it can't be in band. It has to be out of that communication. Like, we have to have this out of band mechanism, because if we, and how do you convince general public to actually utilize that?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I'm scrolling through TikTok, man, like, I guess the providers need to do that, but this is the thing we have now with large social media networks. It's not in their financial best interest to do any of these kind of tests. Look at Twitter for bots. Yeah, like, we know, like, there's some bots, but yeah, like, how many? Well, like, if we told you how many, then we wouldn't have as many subscribers, and we couldn't ask for more money from, our VC and investors. So you got to just deal with it. Right?
We have a couple. We took about 300 Russian bots offline.
Yeah.
Wait. Okay, so Michael Tiffany is a friend of mine, and he had the company Bot or Not, which now is called Human, I think. Mm-hmm. And it was White Ops. Now it's called Human Security, I think. And they do a lot of bot, click jacking, mostly for commercial purposes, like how many bots clicked my ad and I shouldn't pay them type of thing. Mm-hmm. And the amount of bots that they register, like, they did a report not long ago. I'd have to pull it up, but holy God, 300 bots is not a drop in the bucket. It's not even it's an atom in the bucket.
Right. I think it's Facebook. Yeah. YouTube publishes some of those statistics, and I think they do it. Do they do it monthly? I linked to it several weeks ago. I believe it comes out monthly, and they kind of give you a state of the YouTube police kind of report. Like, this is how many, Chinese disinformation YouTube channels we took down. It's in the thousands on that particular one, I think, from what I remember. So it is largely up to the providers, but they have to be compelled, maybe even force regulated into doing this type of, now we get into a whole debate on who should be deplatformed, who shouldn't, based on what premise, and then it's a private company. It's not a government running. It's not China. Not all the companies are Chinese companies, right? Like Chinese government companies. It's a totally different dynamic. So.
And I think this is where a platform's going to emerge that does this. I mean, Twitter kind of does some of this with the verified, and I think eventually we'll get to that point where, your NFT or wallet-backed, blockchain-backed identity becomes part of your sign-in and authorization to post things as you online, and which people actually look for and care about. And platforms will be the first adoption because that's where mainstream. It's got to be easy for the regular Joe Schmo to do this. And so they'll have a way to do it and integrate it all. And I think,
but that's part of the problem, though. You can validate what's coming. That my channel is my channel, and what I post on my channel is my content. The problem with deepfakes is someone could create something on another channel, and that's what gets circulated. That's what gets used. It could be.
So you're only going to be able to trust the things that are at the source or at the provider that you trust. Which, again, if we look at news outlets and what people trust and read and take as gospel, like, that's not going to be much better anyway.
But isn't it amazing to say, like, nothing's 100% true? We've really...
There's always an angle or a lens.
Yeah, in this interconnected world. I mean, we've been following the security news as an example, right? And I have to say, the cybersecurity news is a lot better with this, and the sources that we follow, and I've shared them with everyone in the past, right? But when you step outside of that into, like, mainstream, or even just trying to figure out, like, what's happening with COVID, what's happening with, various topics, Russia and Ukraine. Man, you got to pull. I mean, many of us do it, right? We pull from different sources and we talk to people before you form an opinion. But you go look on Facebook or some other social media platforms, and people are like, oh, that picture looks like it makes sense because it has words on it in a picture, so therefore that must be what's true.
They don't even read the article. They literally read the headline.
They read the headline.
Opinion they'll go to the grave with.
Yes.
So I would estimate, and this is going to sound very judgy, but a lot of us, like you just said, Paul, will do that, right? We'll go to different sources. We'll try to validate, verify, and really form an opinion. I bet you that's less than 1% of the population that actually does that.
Yeah. And even if you talk to an expert, right, they just may have a different opinion. I mean, I've heard some doctors say things about COVID, and I'm like, I understand you're a doctor and all, but like, it's almost like then
you research what they've looked at, how they've done it, what kind of school they went to, what the opinions of those professors were, and the way that they treat medicine. Like, there's a whole, you pull on the thread, and the thread just ends up being a freaking polyester suit. It's bad.
Yeah, but I think also, the validation of studies, right? You can't take one study, and we do this in cybersecurity too. I can't take one survey that draws a conclusion and go, that's the truth 100% of the time in that situation. That's the truth. No, you got to look at multiple studies
and data.
Yeah,
not just the raw data of the study. You have to look at the raw data of who was studied, where that data came from, what was the precursors for, if they even disclose that, which good studies should.
What were the biases? What are the biases or influences?
Expansion.
Yep.
I mean, we see that all the time, that there's a commercial cybersecurity company sanctions a study that fully supports the product that they sell. And I mean, sometimes they're not wrong. Like, I'll give that to them. I'm not saying every study or survey that's out there is complete garbage, right? But I mean, it does align, and some of them aren't wrong, right? The conclusions they're drawing, you're like, all right, if I go shop that around, look at other studies, talk to my friends, study the data, like, okay, in general that's true. But usually, like you said, Tyler, there's some angle to all of this, which is annoying.
But you know what? Just to make a really, really fun comment, because it's getting kind of deep in here. The best part about an NFT is it's the word fungible. Because that is such a cool word.
It is a really cool word, fungible. Yes.
Say it again, Joff. Say it again.
All my tokens are getting funged.
It doesn't sound like a good thing or an erotic thing, Josh. I don't know where it kind of sounds more to me like fungus, which is. But
you've got to lean into the microphone and say.
I just think of a big mushroom, like a Super Mario World mushroom every time I think.
But just the tip, just the mushroom tip,
the head, just the head of the mushroom.
Mycelium fungibility.
Is that what the T in NFT stands for?
Token. Tip. Non-fungible token.
Non-fungible tip.
Non-fungus.
Red Cross.
I want to delve back into a
gutter right in
yeah. I want to delve back into a little bit into vulnerability management. Oracle released its first round of security updates for 2022, which came out in this month.
I thought you were going to say 2021 for a minute there, and I would have been appropriate.
Right. The first one is 497 patches.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, it's Oracle. Do you expect any less?
They do a lot of software. Like talk about looking at angles and all that stuff.
Things that run on Oracle, like that is scary numbers for things that run critical things.
It's true because Microsoft also has a lot of lines of code, and I don't think we've hit 497 in a Microsoft Patch Tuesday.
Nope.
Ever.
Did you see the piece about MySQL?
I did not.
Oh, 78 patches for MySQL, including fixes for 3 unauthenticated, remotely exploitable issues.
Oh, how could that be?
It just creeps right under the radar.
That would be a problem.
How did they do that? Their PR team is amazing.
But my thing is, like, the next one will come out on April 19th. I'm like, what? Can we... Am I out of line?
And it will have 603 patches.
Right, but, like, am I out of line in asking for a way that we can use I don't want to say DevOps, but DevOps style approach where we can break up this work into really smaller, more manageable chunks? And I get it, like applying a patch is not a trivial thing, as we all know. But when I do that, I don't want to start looking at 497. I want to go, okay, what patch are we applying today? Maybe even this week?
Dev branches, like patches for early release, like any of the above.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
no. Look at
patch families, right? Like what subfamily of patches am I applying here?
Whoa! No! Look at the article. They released fixes for every single set of fixes for like every functional group, like retail applications, Fusion middleware, whatever, has got 33 security updates. 22 of them are remotely exploitable, unauthenticated. Every single group is Java SE, 18. Of those 18 of them are remotely exploitable, unauthenticated. PeopleSoft is supply chain. Of the 10 patches, 8 of them are unauthenticated, remotely exploitable. Like, they're basically, like, they didn't even go below critical. Like, below critical is we don't even care anymore, you know? Like, oh my God.
This is not inspiring confidence.
No, but it's also kind of laughable because CISA goes, well, we encourage administrators to review Oracle's latest CPU and apply the fixes immediately. Really? That's what you're going to tell?
They're like, you fix your shit or we will.
Have you ever talked to anyone that runs Oracle products and what they do?
Yeah, 497. 400 Oak Street. It's where I get my underwear at Walmart. Dad let me drive on the driveway on Sundays. 497.
That was awesome.
Oh my gosh.
It's time for Wapner.
I think Larry broke.
Rain Man.
I broke like 497.
Okay, hey Larry, we're going to need you to test 497 patches. Considering that most of them are critical CVSS 10s, we need to be testing these by say Monday. Is that okay, Larry? Can you make that thanks, Larry.
It's time for Wapner.
You got to look at the very bottom. In related articles, SecurityWeek.com posts Oracle's October 2021 CPU includes guess how many?
It's time
guess
for
how many security patches were the last release that likely people are still working on?
280?
419.
And also related, July 2021, the one before that?
342.
And the one before that?
390.
How does Microsoft get so much shit? This is bad.
That is more than 1,000 security patches
in less than a year.
In a 12-month period.
What kind of testing is
less. They only go back to April.
Right.
In their defense, wait a second. In their defense, Microsoft rolls up a lot of patches into the service packs. Couldn't think of the word. So it could be that there are 1,000 patches in Microsoft, but they're done in Service Pack 1 and 2 instead of patch 497 and 375.
And Oracle has a tough time doing it that way, Josh, because of all the interdependencies in the software that's being used here.
Oh, I agree, but I'm just saying Microsoft is able to do that. So maybe they have 1,000, but I don't know. I mean, does anybody know how many patches like server and Word and everything else got over the past year? Like individual patches?
Like, yeah, we've went through almost all of them. It's not quite that many.
Okay.
Maybe in the hundreds, but
497.
I don't know. The testing environment for this, like I'm just thinking of the Oracle, Apache, PeopleSoft, Java environment of all the things that this has to go through just to know if this is safe is yeah, that's why they have service agreements, obviously.
Crazy drunk drivers. Tell me what movie is that
75 toothpicks. 75 toothpicks.
497 is the number.
Qantas. The only airline that hasn't had an accident, right?
The number is 497 because there's 3 left in the box.
I think we need a segue.
We do.
Oh.
I wish I had some warning for it. I wasn't prepping a segue for
Oh no, I know the one we need to segue to because it'll calm us down. Serving the pot brownies.
No, before we get to that one, I want to talk about
squirrel.
one that might rile us up a little bit, but the 5G rollout.
Yes.
Oh, good one.
So,
That's fun.
I'm watching the mainstream news, right?
And there's your problem right there.
I know. My wife, for whatever reason, lately, she's like, I want to watch the news, right? I'm like, okay. But so they're talking about the 5G rollout, and I'm watching going, like, there's a test to see if the bandwidth being used in 5G and the altimeters on commercial aircraft are in conflict with each other. Like that, someone needs to spin it. Then I started thinking, I'm like, someone needs to spin up a lab, and then they need to go figure out what type of aircrafts are in use in the United States and map that to all the different model and style altimeters that are on every single airplane. And they need to get one of each model inside of a lab. Then they need to have the 5G and the altimeter in the lab. And then they need to conduct some kind of test to say if it interferes and determine interference, which means they need to have a control group. I need to test the altitude from an altimeter, right, without interference, then the interference, and probably cycle through that a few times.
I mean, like FCC testing that happens at like Idaho National Lab and the 5G labs where they test all the things against 5G. And
yeah,
exactly.
So, but then my brain went to like, who pays for that testing?
Serious.
Like, was it a thing where like the cellular companies, AT&T and Verizon, were like, I'm not paying for that, and the airlines are like, well, shit, I certainly can't pay for that, and the government's going, well, we're not going to fund it or pay for it either because we don't know what you guys are talking about.
Or is it the manufacturers of the altimeter or folks like Boeing and those types of folks?
Right.
So
That's a great point, Larry. That's another party.
And are these not hardened against radio interference, and there's fly-by-wire and backup systems, and the fact that radio 5G goes above a cell phone, like the towers are always hitting them anyway, so I'm just not following the line.
Under what conditions in what variables do you have in practice where the 5G tower has to be near the airplane? And now you're talking about temperature, weather, moisture, all those, a million different interference, like reflection, refraction, and try and figure out just exactly how it would affect the altimeter in practice. One way to say how, one thing is to say how it affects it in the lab in controlled conditions, but how is it going to affect it in the field? Because now there's a whole different set of variables.
And arguably the lab is going to be, quote, the perfect conditions. So I would argue that the effects would be more severe in the lab.
Correct.
And less severe in the real world. But if you can introduce something that's going to be pretty bad to the altimeter, which they kind of need to use during an instrument only landing, potentially during severe weather when they don't have visual.
Wait. I've got first principle questions. Larry.
Yeah.
Larry, you should know this.
Yeah.
When AT&T and Verizon, not T-Mobile or Sprint, right? Because it's not their problem. When they came to the FCC and said, hey, we want to buy that spectrum, we're planning to put 5G on there, how could they F this up so bad?
Well, so the article, so the BBC article, it's a great question, Jeff. The BBC article, I don't know if you guys clicked on it, it was my story number 18, because this was my question too, Jeff, right? Because a lot of us said we've done the Wi-Fi thing and Bluetooth, Larry.
Before you get to the article, I'm going to answer the question with a very snarky comment. maybe probably wasn't AT&T and Verizon that fucked it up. You mentioned one key element there, which was the FCC. And I'm just going to leave it at that. If you want to ask how could they fuck this up, that the fuck up Communications Commission. I mean, the Federal Communications Commission.
A Family Guy video on the Anyway.
You know what really grinds my gears?
5G networks, according to this BBC.com article, 3.7 gigahertz to 3.98 gigahertz. There is then what they call a separation guard band from 3.98 to 4.2. Altimeters, according to the article, operate at a range of 4.2 gigahertz to 4.4 gigahertz. So if that's true, is that enough separation to avoid interference? Is the magic question.
I'd argue,
well,
yeah.
and if it is, why is this a story?
Right. That was my yes.
But even better, Joff. Why is this
5G? It's got a buzzword.
Yeah, but even more why this is a story. And Paul, this was something that you and I were talking about over dinner before the show. Was 5G has been already deployed in 40 countries.
Yeah. For years.
The same technology in 40 countries for years, and it doesn't screw up the altimeters in those same aircraft that are flying into those countries. Do you know why?
Whoa. When you load the plane with vaccinated people...
Well, do you know why it doesn't screw up the altimeters in those countries?
They put an entire RF cage around the air. Oh no, never mind.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Those countries says don't put that shit near our airport.
Right.
And guess what?
Oh,
it doesn't affect the altimeters in the aircraft.
But what if I want to use 5G while I'm in the airport?
Well, put a tower in the damn airport and turn the power down.
Oh,
turn the power down. Yeah.
You'd think they'd have some RF engineers that actually
think.
Yeah.
It's scary that a radio frequency, though, is able to do this kind of interference in a way that they're worried about safety. Like, that sounds like a design problem at the altimeter level.
That sounds like a real problem if there were a threat actor or attacker that wanted to mess up an airplane.
Seriously,
sounds like they could do so, and really all they need is a 5G antenna and radio?
Well, there's a whole lot of things you can do.
Or better, just get a directional antenna and stop broadcasting on the exact frequency.
Yeah, right.
For the record, don't do any of these things unless you like federal prison.
We're not suggesting anything.
That would be a violation of FCC regulations.
Yep. Because I've made the joke a number of times that all the thing with signal interference and all this type of stuff is that here in the U.S. the FCC is a complaint-driven organization and they don't monitor for everything all the time, except if you're near a goddamn airport.
Or I mean, it would be a complaint filed if a plane crashed or ran into trouble and was proven to be from interference.
The UK's FAA, like the CAA, said that there's been no confirmed instances where 5G would interfere with an aircraft.
That's because according to that article from the BBC, they operate at different frequencies.
Yep. I mean, the big thing is that they don't want 5G around because, I mean, that's how all of those chips in the COVID vaccines are going to communicate.
So don't like
I said, that's fill the planes with vaccinated people. And you're screwed.
You're screwed.
I mean, if you fill the plane with vaccinated people, can you imagine?
I mean, the problem, Josh, that we've got is that if you've got the 5G chips in the vaccine, where do you put the battery?
Oh, that's you are the battery. That's easy. You are the battery.
That's the
You've been watching enough conspiracy theories, Larry.
Yeah.
Like they got that part figured out.
They do.
That's
good.
Right.
Haven't you seen the Matrix? We are batteries essentially.
That's right.
I'm still just this 5G stuff. Like this is besides the fact that it would only mess with the digital altimeters. There's still backup and fly-by-wire stuff. Like there's still manual things in this airplane. So what?
There's also windows. Look, we're real close to the fucking ground.
The problem is when you can't see out the window.
That's their big one is that you can't use the altimeter, the digital altimeter, when you need to use that during severe weather conditions. There's a window, but and that I think that's the big one. And they said today that they've already canceled flights because of areas with severe weather because they can't use the altimeter because 5G is on. Bullshit.
What?
Bullshit.
Yes.
What?
Bullshit.
I'm calling BS on that. I think there's some entire different motivation behind this entire story, We just don't know what it is.
There's entire government sectors. I can show you the building that researches very thoroughly, and I'm pretty sure that this stuff is very well known. There's some much
you mean well known, and it's a bunch of bullshit.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need
Where's
to
Lee
find.
when I need him?
Yeah, we need to find someone. We need to find someone that an airline pilot, maybe, or an.
We should get the guys that test the 5G that help certify it for the government.
I bet we could find him.
Yep.
I bet we can
call
him.
Chris Roberts too.
I know.
Oh, Chris.
See if he can fly the plane sideways while we're at it.
Using 5G.
Using 5G.
From your vaccine, doesn't even need to bring anything with him. Just needs to be vaccinated.
That's right. You got a plane load of repeaters.
Man's such a badass. He just needs to show up. That's it. Vaxxed and boosted, baby. Now turn those engines on.
What? You're not a pureblood?
That's a T-shirt.
Wow. Picture of it.
Oh, can we move on, please?
Now are we talking about pop brownies now?
And then you know,
and
then we got another one.
All right, let's do pot brownies first. It shouldn't take that long. So my title for this,
dude, if you have enough of them, it's going to take forever.
It's going to take
the title for me is "My Mom Stole My Brownies." So this 46-year-old, I'm just setting the stage here. 46-year-old man who still lives at home with his mom in South Dakota went on a trip to Colorado, where, as we know, marijuana has been legalized for quite some time, and decided to bring something back for himself. I don't know if he drove or he brought back butter.
Either way,
well, I think it'd be kind of hard to get TSA to put a cooler down with a whole pound of butter in it, because he bought a pound of THC butter and brought it back to South Dakota. He then takes half a pound of butter and makes brownies. Now, I'm not sure how many brownies that he made with half a pound of butter, and I'm not sure what the ratio should be.
For the record, that's 2 sticks of butter.
Yeah, that sounds
not a lot. It's not a lot.
But when you're making pop brownies, I'm not sure what the ratio works out. How many milligrams
this way.
in. Yeah.
These are going to be some really good brownies.
That's from what I've heard. That's a lot of butter for pop brownies. I mean, unless you're making, it depends on how many you're making, right? So I don't know if we have
and then you only need to eat a little brownie.
But
you made a whole shitload of brownies. So
so he makes the brownies and he puts them in a Tupperware container and he leaves them on the counter and he goes to bed. And his mom wakes up the next morning, because apparently he's still sleeping, because he probably ate a pop brownie before bed. His mom goes, "Oh,
and he was with his mom. He's playing World of Warcraft,
right? All night. And so he's sleeping in the morning, and she wakes up and goes, "Oh, cool, brownies. I'll take these to," where did she take them? Was there an official?
It was a senior center.
A senior center. Was it a nursing home or senior? I don't know if it was a nursing home or just like a kind of social senior center kind of thing. So more elderly people are just having at it on these pop brownies.
It's just what the doctor ordered, right?
Hey, look, seniors these days, we're around in Woodstock and such. They get a pot brownie, they're going to be like, "Dude, I'm good."
And so they consumed, I'm trying to find how much they consumed. So around 8 p.m. on January 1st, the first of several medical calls were received by Bon-Homme County Sheriff's Office emergency dispatch reporting possible poisoning. Every one of the patients was at the Tabor Community Center earlier for a card game. So like I said, it was like a social kind of community. And it must have been really social that day, let me tell you. Especially about an hour into it.
Dude, they didn't put Molly in the brownies. They put pot in the brownies.
So maybe it wasn't social. Maybe we were just sitting there staring at each other. Like,
dude, I can't reach my cards.
Yeah, exactly.
But I can walk all of a sudden.
Check out these colors. Holy shit.
Oh, so it does. I mean, I want to hear more from what happened to the people, because it says they tracked down the people who'd eaten the brownies.
They weren't going very far.
Dude, I want to hear their stories. Hopefully everyone was okay. I mean, all kidding aside.
Yeah.
Consuming large amounts of THC can be dangerous, especially if you're elderly, from all sorts of things. I mean, increased heart rate and things like that. So I don't know that anyone fell truly ill. I mean, people probably thought they were dying, because that's in Colorado. You can read all the reports from overdosing on THC. So he was released on $3,000 bond and has been charged.
The biggest one that surprises me about this article is that you read People magazine.
So going back to our earlier story, I read news aggregators that link to,
Yes.
and there's no secret.
Yep.
But I mean, I use Flipboard to aggregate my news. So rather than subscribing to Like People magazine,
Yep.
I
use
I use
a news
Flipboard.
aggregator that has
Yeah.
interesting stories. Yep.
And you subscribe to different topics and whatnot. And I plugged in marijuana because of stories like this that are absolutely hilarious.
See my news aggregator story got my story,
Yes.
which was infinitely greater than 497, which was DNA testing proved that a milkman in California between 1950 and 1960 fathered over 800 children.
How is that like the math works out, right? Like 365 days in a year. Like,
I mean,
this dude was busy.
I mean, it was over a 20-year period.
Okay.
That's
Still a lot of getting busy.
That's a lot of DNA samples that they have collected, and now you see.
It's
the
called
danger of
It's
what
called
being done.
23andMe.
23andMe.
Yep, and Ancestry.com, and yep. The line at the end of the article fucking kills me. To think at 97 to hear such news, what a blessing. I feel so fulfilled that I can't wait to meet all my children, because all these years I thought I was sterile. My wife and I never had any children.
What?
Okay, that's just awesome.
Yeah. He was young. He delivered the milk when you actually had to. You didn't go to the grocery store. You had milk delivery service, and
Oh, he was delivering more than milk, Larry.
yeah, he was 800 plus times. But like, yeah, he was.
But hold on. No, those are just the times where women got pregnant.
Yep.
He was delivering a lot more than 800 times.
Could be. But
You think about the mean variable there for proper time of the month, different women, different times.
Yeah.
Like, that's
He was-
probably a 3 to 4x mean variable factor.
well,
Like, he was-
not
he
to
he was-
mention.
He was delivering more than the milk, like on a consistent basis to multiple houses
Yep.
for a good stretch.
Pun intended.
Wow.
Oh God.
That's yeah.
I mean, like, who else gets a sex story like that and then tries to do the statistics on it? We are such friggin' geeks. Oh my god.
Very true. Like I'm legit trying to do the math of like
Tyler's quiet. He's still doing the math.
still doing the math. Like, can you create a spreadsheet for this, Tyler? Like,
the-
how many women, how many houses, how many?
The average output of a viable sperm per. Yeah, like,
But you got to
male,
take into
that's
account
the-
that one woman could have bore more than one child for this
But that
person,
still
yeah,
has
right?
a 9-month variation of each of these being separated by 9
Right,
months.
'cause you
and
can't get
they're
pregnant
not
twice,
pregnant
right?
For those 9
Right.
months.
Yes,
On top
yes.
of cycles, and there's a lot of math here.
There is.
There
I'm
is.
looking forward to your research paper on this, Tyler. I really am.
We look forward to living vicariously through you for your empirical results. Now move to Southern California. Or are you going to test? I don't think it would have the same effect if you tested it in Idaho,
No, it would not.
because it'd be Idaho, not Idaho. Wait, never mind.
Craziness.
Yeah. As he went about his day job, Randy really developed a cordial relationship with his customers.
Oh, it was a cordial relationship, all right.
And most of the time, his interaction with housewives. Like, this has like a porn movie written all over it.
He had never was absolved of paying any kind of child support.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at 97.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy story, Larry.
Crazy. Oh, wait a minute. We can tie this back to him. Some of the women he used to have a cordial relationship used to make pies and other snacks for him, like brownies.
Like Brownies.
Oh crap! Side Dragon actually responded. I hit him up on Twitter,
Yeah.
and he responded on Twitter and said, "Yes, there's a legitimacy there." Hang on a second.
Interesting.
Whoa. There was a legitimacy to the last story.
There was a lot of
Or illegitimacy.
Well, you don't know how many of the women were married and how many weren't, or if he was married at the time.
He was.
He was married.
Oh, well,
I'm gonna throw
according
this in.
we never had kids.
I'm going to throw this in Discord, but he actually put a link about the assessment of C-band mobile telecom interference impact on low-range radar altimeter operation. Damn, he's fast.
Huh.
So it's in Discord.
It's in
we'll have to
Discord?
bring him on.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Throw it in Twitch, too.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. We'll have to bring him on to have a larger conversation about that because it sounds fun. About the 5G interfering with altimeters, not
the milkman
fathering 800 children.
Yeah.
Oh,
he said.
But we didn't talk about. Hold on, we didn't talk about 9-year-olds launching DDoS attacks against schools, so they get school canceled.
Brilliant. I'm just gonna say, like, we should start following some of these kids for hiring after we teach ethics.
I was gonna say that's a recruiting thing, but we got to put in some pre-conditions.
But I don't think like
ethics.
I don't believe that. I think they're just going to a booter service, right? Like I don't think they're not building their own botnets and launching a DDoS attack. I mean, if that's the case, like you said, Tyler, we teach them ethics first and then we hire them. But I think it's just to me, it's more of a systemic problem in two different ways. One is ethics and awareness training to children, which is really where this article was focused on, the ethics behind some of this, some of these activities, such as when you're playing video games, you want to boot someone off the game, right? You go to the booter service, and then kids are like, wait, if I can take down like one or a couple of people in a video game, why can't I take out the school? And then I don't have school that day. Like, that's totally awesome. And then I got more time to game, right? So they made that leap. Obviously, there's a huge moral ethics values conversation that needs to happen, which is where this campaign that happens to be from the UK is focused. But also, what can we do, law enforcement and cybersecurity, to make sure these services aren't available to people like 9-year-old kids?
See, my initial reaction was like, they're just going to DDoS the school, and then they're just going to, like we do here, we're going to treat it like a snow day. Like, the first snow day is a snow day. The second day that we have snow, they go to virtual, and I'm like, so they're just going to
If you wipe out their capacity to do virtual learning.
Yeah, now it's a snow. Yeah.
But really, that sounds like poor network design to me. Like if you're not capable, although I did just see this, like we had a power outage here, and although all the kids use Zoom and Google Docs and Google Classroom, the district had set up the URL in order for the authentication to validate the students to log in. It rerouted through the district's website. The website went down because the power was down because they hosted themselves.
Yes.
And they were not even able to get to Zoom or to Google Docs because of the auth redirection. That's a bad design decision, and they need to re-architect.
Agreed. Yep. They need to host it in the cloud.
Yeah, I was just going to say move to the cloud.
So then they have to DDoS Google. And good luck with that.
Now
it's a little harder than.
I mean, they just DDoS Google, or they figure out what the IP addresses are assigned to where the teachers are holding their classes at the school, maybe school building, and just DDoS those.
Not that we're giving you kids any ideas out there. Like, hold on. We're not condoning this behavior.
This is a critical, a thinking, a thought exercise
Yes.
in network design and single points of failure. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, booters are not for children or adults, for that matter. Of course, it's really, these services move around so much. That's a whole other topic for a whole other time, right?
Yeah. And I'm curious, like, where they did the research for this. Was it at the school? Was it allowed? Like, if they did it at home, like, that's some scary home networks anyway, like we've been saying. So there's a whole bunch of problems that can arise from, just training kids what the risk is of getting into these sites and the other things that potentially happen on these sites. Like, it was pretty cool that they found the site and they were able to pull it off, but
right, like someone found it first and was in the game chat or Discord channel and makes friends with someone and goes, oh, if you want to boot someone, like, dude, here's the service you want to use, right? That's usually
and most of the services require crypto, so like did they set up a wallet? Like, did they put funds in? Did they figure out how the transaction worked? Like, there's some non-trivial things that they had to go through to get the service to actually activate.
That's interesting. Oh, and a German team took control of a Tesla by hacking a third-party app. And I was like, wait a minute, Pwn to Own hasn't happened yet. But apparently this was, you can control vehicle in motion functions. Yet. But the hack, as it was reported, it couldn't touch things like steering, acceleration, and braking. Yet. But all the other cars, controls, door locking, and that kind of stuff. Yep. Was fair game. I'm assuming there's some kind of...
Does that mean there's those are not sandboxed functions in the CAN bus that allows APIs between those different systems? Because I know the steering and braking and stuff, those are isolated device functions. Some of these other ones, like Unlock, is interesting because there's third-party apps that tie in. You can monitor your vehicle. You know, have an app on your phone. Those obviously are in a different security enclave and thus have API calls between all the functioning systems. So there's a lot of interesting things that aren't said in this article.
Yeah, but most cars you can start it from the app too. So I'm assuming there's ways to bridge that bus. Yep. Like I said, maybe this person's holding that particular exploit for Pwn to Own. It's going to drive away because now we can unlock it. You got to unlock it if you want to get in it and drive it away.
I mean, that's what I would do.
Right?
Yep. Why would you tell anybody if you've got an exploit to take over Teslas?
But he would have to disclose that to Tesla. That would be, in speaking with Dragos, right? That would be responsibly disclosed. But you get a Tesla out of the deal. Not a bad deal.
No, not a bad deal. Especially if it's the Model S.
He didn't say it was a Model S. He said it was a Model Y and I forget which one of the other models. It wasn't an S. Damn. I know. I was listening for that too. It was not an S. Still a Tesla, nonetheless.
Still, it's a free car.
A free car, yeah.
I know Unit 8200 does not pay in Teslas, so might be worth.
But they pay in money, which you can use to buy a Tesla. So I mean,
they do pay in money, but then you're on their list as well, so that's another problem.
True.
Well, the NSO group reaches out after that point, and you're not on any lists after that. Mm-hmm. But we don't talk about that.
Wow.
North Korean hackers stole... This is just a segment that's never going to end because... Anyway, North Korean hackers stole $400 million in crypto last year. My question is like, how
now it's only worth like 200.
How accurate can that number be? And how did they derive that number? And how do you
pretty accurate and pretty easily. Like there's 5 or 6 major companies, not including government's abilities and their analytics, but you can track every transaction and build a web and follow pretty much all the transactions to known wallets and or using other information and key indicators. You can tie wallets to organizations, resources, geolocations.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is this number could be higher, not lower.
Yes. Yeah, this is just
as a matter of fact,
known wallets and following blockchain transactions, scrubbing services, and anonymizers. Like they trace it through all that. That's pretty straightforward. So most of these are probably legitimate, which I thought that number actually was kind of small for a nation state, but it is North Korea, so their capabilities are kind of sloppy too.
Yeah, but it could also be higher, I guess, is my point in the reporting, right? Because the wallets you don't know about, you won't know about.
Yep, so it's likely more. There's no analytics or there's no indicators or metadata for those particular wallets, and there's nothing you can really correlate.
Yeah, like if they went through a different group with a different wallet and series of transactions that they couldn't tie back, that would be revenue that they weren't accounting for.
Yeah, and remember as well,
they were able to do this means that they're even more sloppy than we already know that they are. So
interesting.
I remember as well that most legitimate exchanges have a blacklist of coins and wallets, so that if they see a coin that they know was stolen, they won't allow it to be traded on their exchange.
Yep.
So it's still, I mean, what's that?
I said those are just the exchanges. So yeah, those aren't valid in any of the exchanges, but then you get washing services, and even then you're still following it, right? They're still valid transactions. That's the great thing about blockchain.
The blockchain, right? It's all public.
All transactions are traceable and or readable by everybody. So you will always be able to follow the money. It's whether or not you can figure out from the metadata or from other intelligence what that money ends up at the endpoint. Do you know what that wallet is? Do you know where it ended? Do you understand the different groups? You can correlate a lot of things, even the affiliate network for ransomware, right? Like we see each of the affiliates taking their cut as we follow the trail, then you see it get washed, then you see those ones wash, and you can get a percentage. You actually know how much they get paid at the end of all this because all the transactions are recorded.
Mm-hmm. You see the inputs and the outputs. Yep.
It's pretty hard to get to the anonymous place. It takes a fair amount of effort, off-chain exchanges. In fact, not even exchanges. You're talking about going to non-distributed networks and having offline cold wallets that don't do anything and are very specific uses that get moved. So it's not easy to do.
But interesting how they said that this was stolen cryptocurrency, not necessarily something that was part of a transaction, right? In other words, like North Korea is going to do some service and they're going to get paid in cryptocurrency or whatever.
Yeah,
so still, I think that number's low, right?
There was all that the stuff that they were doing with ransom, and then they had, what was it, some crypto stealing extensions in Chrome. There was a few campaigns that they were going directly after crypto and had some quick burn exploits that they used for those particular campaigns to get funding, is what it seemed like.
And
but whether or not they were able to use those coins is also interesting. Like
that's
Josh
what I was going to say. Yeah, how do they then? All right, so you got $400 million across how many wallets in different cryptocurrency conceivably? How do you utilize that to support your dictatorship?
Yeah, you take a 10-to-1 hit and use a service that has a way to take that crypto to fiat and monetize on it outside of exchanges controlled by regulatory bodies, and then you're losing that 90%. Mm. So that's probably what they did.
Gotcha. So the deal is that laundering money in fiat terms, regular money terms, is that you know who's doing it, but you don't know how they're laundering the money. You don't know where the money is. In blockchain terms, it's exactly the opposite. You know exactly where the money is. You just might not know who's doing it. Mm. So that's literally the way I got the American Society of Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialists to understand it. And with this case, the only way to launder that money appropriately is to sell it for fiat, like at a local Bitcoins type thing. So you're losing, as Tyler said, a hell of a lot of value, and then put it back into crypto to move it across borders, or leave it in fiat, whatever you want. But you're losing a lot. You'd lose what? What do you think, Tyler? Like, honestly, I don't know if it'd be 90%, but you'd lose at least 40 to 50% just because you have to do it in smaller sums and through every kind of local Bitcoin and Bitcoin back alley, right?
To scrub it enough for what they're probably trying to do. If you scrubbed it twice, you'd be. Oh
yeah, then you're losing 90. You're right. 60%. Okay. Yeah, I would say 60 to 80. Yeah, you're right. If you have to scrub it twice, it just, oh my God.
Even in crypto, and then like using it in crypto for, purchases like other altcoins or NFTs, leveraging it to buy physical goods on other markets where, you're not leveraging an exchange, you're doing a crypto to physical purchase and payment. There's a lot of services that are doing that on the dark web, and criminal organizations using those. So money laundering, even now, is anonymity is not trivial or easy to do. So
interesting.
You notice that Joff's been very quiet about the whole money laundering thing.
It's not anything to do with money laundering. It's got to do with me, actually kind of working here at the same time.
Oh, see, I thought you... Well, yeah, working at money laundering. You just don't want to give up all your secrets.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is. Oh, yeah.
Double washing it. He's busy double washing it.
It's all that double regexes, right?
Double regexing my money. That's right.
Alrighty. What do you say? I snuck in a lot of... Just when we thought we were done, I snuck in another story.
Yeah, so did that bookman.
I don't know if I can... Can I do that again? Organizations face a losing battle against vulnerabilities. We talked about that. We talked about vulnerabilities.
We talk about vulnerabilities every week.
Every week. Alrighty. What do you say we cut to the next segment? We get another segment. It's pre-recorded.
Sounds like a plan.
Hey, come right back with a technical segment. Stay tuned.